Hi there, welcome to the Lifehack Show. We realize how tough it is to juggle all the ins and outs of daily life. Join me, Allie Kramer, Content Director of Lifehack, as I talk with top experts in the self-improvement sphere for insight on how to make life more enjoyable, no matter who you are. If you're looking to live your very best life, this podcast is made for you. In today's episode, we'll be talking to Annie Ridout about her latest book, The Freelance Mum, a flexible career guide for better work-life balance. Along with being an author, Annie is also the editor of digital parenting and a lifestyle platform called The Early Hour, a journalist, and co-founded and produces content for a women's confidence app called Clementine. Welcome, Annie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Annie, your writing is really inspiring stuff, especially to women out there who are feeling stuck trying to balance all they have to juggle in day-to-day life, today's world. I'm really interested in the story of how you got started in your freelance work and what inspired you to seek out a better work-life balance for yourself. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. That I've actually been self-employed for a really long time, but I had a full-time contract as a copywriter until about 5 years ago. I became pregnant and I discovered that after I had my baby, my contract would be terminated. I wouldn't have any maternity pay or leave, which was
How soon into your pregnancy did you discover that?
Quite early on. I think I told them quite early on, and I sort of went into the office and felt really excited because I was pregnant, but I worked a bit from home already, so I thought it would be fine. I definitely could have been writing copy whilst looking after my baby.
Mm-hmm.
But they just sort of the HR department called a meeting with me and said, no, you won't have a job after you've had your baby. And I was really surprised, so I left and sort of burst into tears and felt really unsupported and surprised. And because it was my first baby, I hadn't really heard about maternity discrimination and how sadly common it is. So I went with it. I asked for a pay rise. I asked for a higher day rate so that I could start saving money for my maternity leave to boost the government allowance, which isn't enough to live off. And then I had my baby and I was completely distracted by being a mum.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. But in sort of quite early weeks, I was thinking, what am I going to do for work? Because I needed to work and I wanted to work alongside being a mum.
Sure.
So I started looking into things I could do from home, because I also didn't realize I didn't want to be separated from my daughter. I didn't want to be doing a sort of 9-to-5 office job and leaving her in childcare.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into lots of different really random things like transcription and all sorts of things. And then I'd trained as a journalist and I'd been writing lots of articles before I got the copywriting job. So I started looking into that again and started writing for some women's and parenting magazines. And then I got a part-time job, which was fine. It didn't pay very well. It was writing for an online magazine. And then that was going to come to an end. The magazine was going to close down. And I decided that I wanted to take my career into my own hands and stop relying on other people to pay me. So I decided to launch a parenting platform, which is called The Early Hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I launched that when my daughter was 1. And I had the intention, I started it as a business. I wanted to make money through sponsored content and brand collaborations, but it ended up leading down lots of different avenues that I hadn't anticipated when I launched. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. Which I guess often happens when you start a business. You have a really clear vision and idea, but you have to always be quite open to it being it can lead down lots of different paths.
That can be exciting and both scary at the same time, I can imagine.
Yeah, but I think I was just really open to it. I think
that's great.
Once I had this idea that it would be the Huffington Post for parents and it would be a multi-million-pound empire. And then I realized, actually, to create something like that, you've got to have a very unbalanced work life, i.e. you have to work all the time and have no life. And that's what Arianna Huffington realized when she completely burnt out So she sold her company for 300 million, but also had a mental and physical breakdown. So I realized, actually, the reason I'm doing this is to be around for my daughter, to have a nice life as well as an enjoyable career. So I started being commissioned to write for The Guardian and other newspapers and magazines. And that was like a nice little sideline to what I was doing with the early hour. I did go down the sponsored content route, and that worked out really well. But then I got a book deal to write about being a freelancer, which was kind of a bit of a long story, but I'd pitched another book idea. And then we realized that actually what people would find more interesting was how I was making it work as a freelancer and a mum to now 2 children. And so I got the book deal, wrote the book, and then off the back of the book, it's sort of like one thing led to the other. The early hour led to lots of freelance writing, and then the freelance writing led to a book deal, and then the book deal has now led to me running online courses, which are now my main source of income. So teaching other freelancers and business owners how to grow their businesses.
That's incredible. And it's amazing to think about all of the extra work that has to go on behind the scenes. Just pitching a book idea, I'm sure that was a process in and of itself. And then you running all the other jobs on the side. You make it sound so simple. Like, oh, I'll just have a baby.
No, it's definitely not simple. And you definitely have to work hard and to be self-motivated. But you don't have to commute, which like so many people spend a lot of time. They get up early, they commute for like an hour or 2 into their office each day and back. And then you're distracted by office politics and chat and whatever else, which can be nice, but it's definitely distracting.
Sure.
And when you work from home and you cut out the commute and you work in the hours that you feel most productive, or the hours that you've got childcare if you're a parent, I think you can get a lot more done in a small amount of time. You also choose what you're doing, so you don't have to do all the crap jobs that your boss is telling you you've got to do when you're in an office. You do still have to do some crap jobs. I think when you're running any kind of business, there's a bit of there's going to be something you like less that you still got to do. But so it's hard work, but I think that it can feel really satisfying when you start making money from your own stuff and you have like the ultimate flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great positive or optimistic attitude to have about it too. You certainly need to have that when you're going into this type of work. Was there ever a time where you were kind of feeling unsure about the reality of juggling your kids and being a freelancer? And how'd you overcome those limitations?
So I had my daughter, she was 1 when I launched the early hour, and that was fine. She used to nap for like hours every day, so that's when I'd work.
Nice.
And then after a few months I put her in nursery 1 day a week and then upped it to 2 days a week. So as I started earning some money, I got some proper childcare and just grew it really slowly. But then I became pregnant with my son, and I was publishing daily content on the early hour, plus growing the social media channels and everything else that's involved in kind of online content and publishing.
Wow.
So then I stockpiled 3 months of content for when my son was born. So I worked really hard in pregnancy so that I could have 3 months sort of recovering and getting to know him. But what happened was that I gave birth and he slept all the time. So in the early months, I actually had loads of time where I was just sitting around. I was recovering physically, but mentally I was fine, and I was able to work. But then when he turned 3 months and started to become sort of a bit more awake and active and less sleepy, and he started to need me more, that's when I was meant to be going back to producing all this content. And I panicked, but did it, and felt really stressed. I remember just walking around the house just feeling so anxious because I had this baby who wanted to breastfeed all the time and needed lots of attention. I had my daughter with me. She was at nursery 2 days a week, so the other days she was with me as well. She was 2.5 at this point.
Oh, wow.
So I definitely felt really stressed. And then my sister and my husband kept saying to me, why don't you just put out less content? And that was so obvious, but I just couldn't get my head around it because I'd wanted to grow it into this big thing. I didn't want to pull back. And maybe I was challenging myself, or sort of telling myself that just because I had another kid, it didn't mean now I had to work less, but actually it did. And so eventually I saw the light, and after about 6 months I reduced the content massively to like 1 article a week, and I just felt so relieved, and nothing happened, like nothing changed. I still had as many views on the website, because I was promoting existing content. And yeah, I just realized there are ways around it. You've got to work out how you want your day to day or your week to week to pan out work wise, alongside motherhood, and then to adjust what you're doing accordingly, and to just find other ways to make it work. So I thought the only way was to be putting out daily content, and I was wrong. So then I made that adjustment, and I was putting out less content, which also kind of opened me up to being able to pitch a book, because there was a bit more time available.
Oh, nice.
And so when I think my son was 1 when I got the book deal, and I'm now pregnant again. And this time, my baby's due in a couple of months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, this time I feel really relaxed about it, because all my work is on my own terms now. So I've set my online courses so that in July I'll run my last course where I actually give feedback each week. And then following that for a few months, I haven't decided how long, I'll run self-paced courses, so people can sign into the courses, but they work at their own pace. There aren't any deadlines, and I don't have to give any feedback. So they're kind of using all the materials in their own time. So that's a kind of passive income stream that I've set up for when I have the baby.
That's really incredible. And so the listeners can find these courses on your website, AnnieRidout.com. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, good. I definitely encourage everyone to do that. And before we go, can you tell me a little bit more about your book, The Freelance Mum, and what our readers could potentially benefit from? Any advice that you could snag from the book that you'd like to share with our readers?
Yeah, so the book is all about how to set up a freelance career after you've had a baby. So there are chapters on confidence. A lot of new mums are lacking confidence. There's this whole change of identity. Perhaps you don't want to go back to your old job, but you don't know how to make the leap into self-employment. It can feel quite daunting. So there's lots of advice for overcoming those fears and low confidence. Basically, when I set up the earlier, I knew nothing about, I'd been blogging, so I knew a little bit about publishing content online, but I didn't really know what SEO was. I didn't know what PR was, really.
Wow, so you had to really learn a lot of like specific skills that people have full-time jobs doing alone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the reality. When you set something up, you've got to learn everything from scratch. And my idea was that I would write this book, and a new mum or a woman with kids, maybe they're a bit older, could read it and wouldn't have to spend hours and days and weeks and months and years researching all this stuff. They could just read the book and know suddenly how to get some press coverage for the freelance career they've set up, or how to launch on social media, what platforms they should use, how to get more followers, what not to do, because I did lots of things wrong. So it's all about sharing everything I've learned about how to freelance when you've got kids, and just to freelance in general, and sort of grow a business, and how to avoid sort of all the mistakes I made as well.
That sounds wonderful. Really, really helpful tool for many people, I'm sure, that are looking into this type of work. It's such a great flexible way to work that is different than what society has normally put us at. You can either be a mom or you can be a full-time worker, but I love how you integrate, and it really makes that work-life harmony happen, which is beautiful.
I think so, yeah. I think the idea is that flexi working, we're talking a lot more about it, but it's not really happening, or it's not happening enough. And I think the only way to really take back the power is to work for yourself. And then, because I thought if I was to go back into full-time employment or even part-time and then have another baby, I didn't want to lose my job again. Whereas if you're working for yourself and you have clients or you're selling products, you have full control over what happens if you have another child or if something happens. that's out of your control. And I think we all need to take back the power a bit, especially women and especially mums. And that's why so many more mums are going freelance after having children.
Yeah, that's really great. How inspirational. So let me ask you real quick, who do you look towards for inspiration outside of, I guess, your children and yourself?
God, so many different people, almost all women, I would say. At the moment, I've set up this closed Facebook group for people on my courses, and I'm going there for inspiration. It's so amazing when women are, some of them are at the start of the journey, because I'm running a course about how to become your own boss. So these are women who are looking to go freelance or set up a business. And their energy is so inspiring, and it reminds me why, how I felt when I started, and sort of helps me to revisit that energy that I had. Equally, there are women who I'm teaching how to get press coverage, and then they're going out and getting these commissions and getting their products featured in national papers, and that's so exciting. So that's where I'm going at the moment. I'm going to this online community
I love
of freelancers and entrepreneurs.
That's so great. How wonderful. It's great that you have that community, and it's amazing that you have this book out. So where can our readers find your book, and if they were looking for more information about it?
So it's called The Freelance Mum, a flexible career guide for better work-life balance. My short title. That's available on Amazon, depending, where you live, and I guess can be ordered into independent bookshops, I should say.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really great. We'll include a link on that in the podcast here. And
Thank you.
this is all wonderful. And all of our listeners out there, be sure to check out Annie's website. It's www.annieridout.com. That's AnnieRidout.com. She's a master of freelancing and quite the expert there on helping anyone who wants to transform their career to something a little more balanced and flexible. Annie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This wraps up today's show, and stay tuned for the next episode.